My name is Homa Khairulapur. I'm Associate Professor at Wilfrid Laurier University and member of Board of Directors of Canadian Science Policy Centre. So we are pleased to have Dr. Professor Donna Strickland here with us today at 17th Canadian Science Policy Conference, and opportunity to actually having this conversation with you, Donna. Thanks for being here.
And thanks very much for having me.
I do remember vividly the moment of Nobel Prize moment in physics in 2018 as someone who studied and worked for quite some years at the University of Waterloo. And I remember that I was telling my friends and my colleagues that I passed Donna's lab every single day. I do remember I was talking about that very proudly, and thank you also for bringing that proud to every single of us, Donna. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to dig into the question. I have some question for you today, and I'm very excited to have this conversation with you. So your work on chip pulse amplification, so it's transferred a laser science in all different ways and has lots of different applications. So I want to know your perspective on investing on fundamental science, and like how you think from your point of view government of Canada can invest on balancing out to support fundamental science, however, with immediate and also mission-oriented priorities that a country have in different ways.
Yes, I think Canada, as all industrialized countries, must invest in research right across the gamut, from the most fundamental to the most applied. If you do not invest in the most fundamental, come 20 years from now, if the whole world quit doing fundamental research, in 20 years, there couldn't be more and more applications because we would have used up the information that we have about the world. It is because we keep understanding how this universe works better, different, we understand it better, that we can take that knowledge and turn it into new applications. Also, just as you expand the breadth of information, ideas can come from anywhere, because the number one use of chirped pulse amplification is eye surgery, and that actually came from an accident in the lab. So you don't know where something is coming from, and it is not at all the application we had in mind when we developed the laser. So you don't know where it's coming from, and you must invest right across the board.
Awesome. So it does have tons of the optics of research. It has tons of applications. But what do you think is, what's your opinion of having the barriers in Canada to translate this fundamental research into medical applications, into innovation? Like, do we have barriers? And
I think we have both barriers, and we also have ways to help. I think in the big labs, and so we have a big laser lab in Canada, and industry is asked to come in and use it, but industry wants to use this laser. This helps then the students trained at these lasers then get to go out to the industry, and then they have a better feedback into the big systems again. We have some programs like CREATE that are specifically for industry, and that helps bring the people to the industry. I think the number one barrier we have in this country is that we have not really figured out a good way to get past the small spin-off, where the students maybe will be interested in spinning something out and turning it into a company. Instead, we usually get bought out and it goes to California or somewhere. So we need to find, and whether we want to use the American SBIR program, where that is these small companies get to go for grants, just like it's a university, but it's a different pot of money, and they get that money to help bridge that development stage so that it becomes a viable product. We don't have that. Denmark does it very well with their system. Korea has a wonderful way of getting the work out into industry. Canada must look around the world to see what works and then figure out what works best for us, but we have to start doing it.
Exactly, that's a very good point. So we are losing lots of our talent because of that.
Yes, and we're losing our IP because of it. And we're just losing all of these other chances of taking all of these many small ideas and turning them into Canada's big countries, or big companies. But, so Korea, right, is very good. Look, they were a poor country in the 1950s after their war, very poor compared to Canada. And yet now we're all using Samsung phones, we have LG appliances, we're driving Hyundai cars, and they did it by investing in science and then investing in companies and letting the companies know they better be investing back into the academic research. And not just for, to be developed in the next 6 months, but just invest big dollars back into this academic research profile. And so they all win because they all work together. And Canada has not figured that part out yet.
Awesome. So my next question, following question, is kind of related with it's data sharing and policy. And so as someone from environmental science, so there's a big deal for us. We always talk about open data, and but open data for us has, I think, a bit different meaning than your field, because there are some field or different fields. So some field, they have some concern of safety concern if you share the data. And do we share all the data? We don't share all the data. So I want to know, with this ultra fast optical science to move so super fast and quickly, so how we can actually ensure that we can share the data and that it can remain reproducible. At the same time, we can actually use that for innovation, for technology, but the safety concerns stay also very important for us.
Well, I don't see that the role of the scientist is so much in the role of the safety. I think that is for other people to deal with. Certainly when we were building this laser in the United States, we got defense money. And I'm hoping that when Canada starts spending a lot more in defense, we put a lot of that money into research. Because even if it's aiming for defense, I'm going to turn your question the other way, even when you're aiming for defense, the spin-offs of it are so fantastic. Mm-hmm. And much of the research done in the United States at universities will be funded by their defense, and yet it's still open. The data is still open. And so, look at Ontario in particular, uses nuclear energy all the time. Had they not been investigating for the bad part of it, we wouldn't have had that. So I think it's the role of government to make sure everything is done ethically, but it's the role of scientists to discover. And so we shouldn't be hampered by what if. We should have the research out there, and then the other people decide how it can be used and how it should be used. I don't think it's the role of the scientist to do that.
That's a very good point. In your field, scientists in your field, are they open actually to the idea of open data and share the data that they have?
Well, of course, in laser building, we only have so much data. We're trying to either get the most power or the most bandwidth or the most something. And so, of course, we're going to share that because we want to prove that we've gotten awesome. The most. So it's a different type of thing. It's not data that we would, it's not like astrophysics, maybe, if we're going to stick with physics. That, of course, they have to share because that is a global endeavor. And so they have to all share. But then, of course, they're all wondering, if we're using the same data, are we going to get scooped? We're building something new, so maybe we can't get scooped building a laser.
Awesome. Pretty sure you heard about Canadian Science Policy Science Meet Parliaments initiative. There we invite scientists to Parliament Hills, and we have a federal program going on since 2018, and we started a provincial one a couple of years in BC and Ontario this year for the first time, which we invite scientists to Parliament Hills and to meet actually parliamentarians and talk with policymakers. Some science and some part of disciplines are easier to communicate with policymakers or anyone outside the research field. Fundamental science is hard and is complex. So what is your suggestions for scientists, specifically scientists that are working in fundamental science, to communicate that with someone outside the science?
Yes, I'm really interested in trying to get science out to the public and really, I think I want the public to understand so they bring their concerns to our policymakers so that we all are on the same page. And so we do need people to not understand necessarily the details of our science, but the importance of our science. And so we don't have to worry so much about the minutiae, we have to get the big picture. And so what I try to do is always find an analogy to an everyday experience that is similar, doesn't have to be exact, but it has to be similar, so that you can say, this is why we're doing this. It is like this. So as an example, laser acceleration. Mm-hmm. I start my talk with the mother duck and the baby ducks riding the wake behind the mother duck. and talk about how it's the same thing, only it's a plasma wave, not a water wave. And that I did not, that idea was given to me by somebody else. I don't want to steal that idea. But there's just always some kind of analogy that you can use that people have seen in everyday life, and you can let them know that that's what you're trying to do. It's not important that they really understand the details of how it works.
But the impact of it and how it can help. One of my favorite videos actually on YouTube is when you are talking to preschool, school, high school, college students. And so it was really interesting to see the translation from a very simplified to more complex and not losing the meaning of it, and to make sure that you...
That's right. You do have to know who your audience is and what they can understand and what's important for them to understand, and then speak exactly at that level.
Are as faculty members trained for being a good communicator, you think, in Canada or not?
I do not think that's not our training at all. That doesn't mean the students think that I'm a very good professor at teaching it, because they really have to understand the details. What I would like to see across Canada is that more emphasis be placed at the top of each university, and almost every department finds out who their top communicator is, and then they work. I was fortunate that when I won the Nobel Prize, the president said, "What can we do to help?" And I said, "I have to give a public talk, and I want to give an excellent public talk. I need help." And so I had a team of 3 communications experts help me prepare those slides, and they got me my dancing photons. And people have come up and said, "How do you make your photons dance?" I went, "I have no idea." But, it was not only that they made better slides, but because I had to communicate with non-scientists to describe what it was, it made me really understand what I was explaining well and what I wasn't explaining well. And so I think if we would just have every department have a person work with a communications team and just get up one talk. I do prefer just to give my one talk because it's very well prepared, as opposed to it takes so much effort. We can't just, every time we have our new thing to talk about, that can be a public talk.
Absolutely.
So this is what I would like to see. And so not every scientist needs to be, but every department should have a scientist that can go out there and talk about either physics in general, right, or chemistry in general, or environmental science in general.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes.
Or maybe start from the lower level, like master's student, PhD student, that they are interested in how they can. I love the idea of having like one in thesis defense, having like one sentence describe your research, which challenge most of the students from the beginning.
That's true. I think all of us, yes, it should be on all of us to be able to communicate as well as we can. But not every, we all have different skills.
Absolutely.
And we can't all have every skill.
It's not easy.
Yes.
It's absolutely not easy. So Donna, you're one of the few women Nobel laureate in physics. Mm-hmm. So I want to know your perspective of how that environment and perspective changed from when you start to study physics and engineering in your career, and how far we are in strengthening the diversity, mentorship, and mostly like retention in STEAM in Canada.
Well, certainly when I went through, I never had a female professor at all. And now we did have the maximum of 6 out of 40 at my department. So I think it has changed quite a bit. I'm getting more worried. I think I don't want to see women go all the way till we're the bad ones and excluding people. I am getting worried that more women than men are going to university. So as we discuss this, we have to discuss it from all sides. But I also think when I get asked why don't women want to do physics, right? Whereas we're now majority in medicine. I said, because society values medicine, right? And so any place that society values, women have gone into, right? And so physics is just so far not valued that much. Mm-hmm. And I believe that if we keep making great physics insights that help the economy and help society, and we communicate it better, absolutely, then of course more women might think, oh, okay. But until society values it, you're not going to necessarily get the women to think it's worth the fight. I
think that's the best way to get back to the importance of fundamental science and how it shapes actually the science and applications afterwards, and exactly, how important it is. Awesome, great. So we are on 17th Canadian Science Policy Conference. Mm-hmm. You have been here before. And I want to know your opinion about, because when we interviewed you, like in 2018, it was first time actually you are attending the conference, and now we are in 2025. So what is your opinion about the value of CSPC, that bringing this connectivity, knowledge mobilizer role of bringing all different sectors from science, industry, governments, and so on together on this very innovation policy landscape that we have right now?
That's right. So I'm a big believer that science helps society. And so I'm a big believer that governments should understand that. And so I think this is the role, and I can see how the Canadian Science Policy Conference is expanding, and that you're bringing in many more MPs. They are starting to take notice. And so, everything takes some time, but we have to keep pushing, and this is a great place where we get out of our silos. The scientists quit working in just their own individual science area, and we have all the way from social sciences to the physical sciences, speaking with policymakers. And we need to do this as much as we can, and so it's a fabulous conference to bring us all together.
Thank you very much, and being here, supporting us, and being part of this conversation. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you very much, man.